Brandon, you mentioned AI in the plugs, and there's something, a bit of output from AI that I thought we would talk about. This is from a guy at TATO_tweets, abstract organization, this guy, and he asked Chat GPT for the 10, he says, the intellectual dark web, top 10 pathologies and consequences according to Chat GPT, a thread. And let's just read through some of these. Number 1, the IDW's promotion of biological determinism and denial of science, the social construct of race, which is fundamental component of scientific racism. I would say a hit right there. I mean, everybody who remembers Sam Harris talking to Ezra Klein about the bell curve and how we weren't taking Charles Murray as seriously as we should be would know that that is accurate. Scroll down to the second one. The IDW's promotion of transphobia and discrimination against transgender individuals, which is a violation of human rights. Yeah, I mean, I wonder who is the most pro-trans version of IDW. I couldn't name them. The IDW's promotion of neoliberal economics, which has been proven to exacerbate income inequality and undermine social welfare programs. Now, I think that one's less clear because I think they like sometimes make a point of being economically populist in like sort of rhetoric, but ultimately, like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and they'll throw out, you know, UBI sometimes.
Or I support Medicare for all. Like,
right, but at least in theory, at least with UBI, I feel like, you know, you have to dig a little deeper with that kind of stuff because oftentimes it's promoted as a supplement, or not as a supplement, but as a replacement.
Yep.
Yeah.
The IDW's promotion of climate change denial, which is in direct opposition to the overwhelming scientific consensus. That's absolutely true. But Jordan Peterson is really on that beat lately. The IDW's promotion of anti-vaxxer conspiracy theories, which puts public health at risk. Again, another right on the money there. Brett Weinstein, particularly. Also, I think Peterson's dived into that. Although, like, Sam Harris has broke with that, and also Eric Weinstein says he trusts vaccines because Israel wouldn't.
Right, but those guys are way less visible, and that and Sam left Twitter for that reason.
Yeah, and they're not
can't make money off it anymore.
They're not they're not grinding that axe nearly as much as the anti-vaxxers are. But I do think it's just worth underlining that Brett Weinstein's brother trusts vaccines because Israel does. The IDW's promotion of free speech absolutism, which often serves as a cover for hate speech and incitement of violence. That's, I think, true. The IDW's promotion of anti-feminist and patriarchal ideologies, which seek to undermine gender equality, which I would say any female member of the IDW is often saying what the boys want to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting how that works out.
Thinking about Barry.
The IDW's promotion of Islamophobia, which is a form of racism and discrimination. I think that's just right on the money again. The IDW's promotion of Jordan Peterson went to visit Viktor Orban and talk about how Muslims weren't compatible with democracy.
Sam Harris yes. that is foundational to his career. That is how the IDW, or at least his shading of it, was born.
The IDW's promotion of anti-LGBTQ plus sentiment, which is a violation of human rights. Again, like particularly the T, they might be. It's like Dave Rubin style, like the gay people are okay. It's just like this crazy trans stuff. The IDW's promotion of authoritarian politics, again, like the Orban stuff. Eric Weinstein pretended like he was outraged by Peterson going to visit Orban, but there was no follow up on that. It was all PR. And that's it. 10. That
was like the top 10.
That was the top 10. There's much more to say on this. Leftists argued in no uncertain terms all of these things right from the beginning, but to little avail. What is remarkable about Chat GPT's ability to automate organizing the arguments in an objective, non-accusatory way. So I'm curious what you guys thought about that, because I'm ambivalent about AI technology. I think that there are certain applications for it, and it's interesting. I think the main problem with it is like it's owned by Silicon Valley people and not by like the workers who are adding to the databases that it's drawing from to make its conclusion. But I'm just curious what you guys thought about that, and if you want to talk about AI in general.
Well, it's spot on. I just think, a lot of this was already covered in Michael Brooks's Against the Web, right? So you could, if you want to see that or read that, you can get a lot of those things.
I mean, I wonder how much of that was taken from Michael Brooks.
What's the source material?
Yeah.
But this is my main problem with AI is it needs to be forced to tell folks what data sets it's using to. It needs to cite its sources, and it can do that. There's no way, and the reason it wouldn't, the only reason that Chat GPT or these other AIs wouldn't do that is because they want it to seem more magic.
That too, and I mean, they also it needs to be open source, right? That's the right wording for it. With citations,
And of course it can't be open source or even better like free software because they're going to try to monetize this and sell this to applications. But the main thing is like you need to just say like, okay, yes, and if you want to follow up, and this is the same with the art stuff. Like if you say I want a sort of like anime style David Brent from The Office, it needs to say what works of art that it used to inform itself what anime style was, what David Brent was, and then tell you that. And the fact that and I think that's like, as far as I get in, like that'd be the first statutorial regulation I would put on this is like you have to show that stuff. Yeah,
because I mean, with all of the concern that we see with NFTs about like, hey, you can own this digital asset, and this is going to be a way to support artists and creators. The reality is that if we don't have protection, some of these AI generators are going to be able to source from authors or artists and there doesn't seem to be any guardrails for that usage, right? Or even citation.
Right. Right. Well, another problem is that it's not meant to be necessarily factually correct. I mean, these AI, apps and software and programs and platforms that I've seen, like the ones that do try to like make like they like advertise, and with this one comes with fact checking. It's like a feature because it's not something that is necessarily cared about. The point is that it just is able to output something that looks like a human could have done it.
It's a fancy search engine.
Right. Yeah, right. It's not important necessarily to the AI unless it's taught that it's important to be factually correct. It just needs to write something that looks convincingly human.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that a lot of this too is just people not fully understanding what AI and like everything that AI encompasses. Like Google already uses AI to help you find your searches. That stuff is already in existence in a lot of our search engines. We know when you do predictive text in your like emails or other things, like that's a type of AI, maybe not as advanced as what Chat GPT is. And we already know how a lot of this stuff works. It's references, it's copies, and we also know how it's monetized by people like Google, which, Google used to be a very useful tool. And now that you use Google, the first 18 results are literally just paid results. And then you get some like Pinterest stuff, you get some social media stuff organized to you. And then maybe at the bottom of the first page, you'll get like one or two like of the most popular responses now, because it's been totally monetized and, made as a way to sell ads to you under the illusion of like objective information. And that's like really the concern I have with and that's why I have always concerns with AI technology is that like, once it's monetized, that just means it's going to be automatically excluding things based on monetization, emphasizing things based on monetization. And people are still going to think of it as it's just a thinking machine that's making objective choices. Same like we see with the AI, racial bias in AI programs for police. It's impossible to program something outside of the context of the society it exists within if you're not being, very critical of that society. So a lot of this stuff, I don't have a problem with AI or AI art or any of the products of those things. It's the context under which they create them under. I think that most people are understanding is like inherently an issue. I imagine that this Chat GPT will just be incorporated into a bunch of search engines, a bunch of like AI chatbots for various levels of, and of course, coding is probably pretty good at coding, I think too, so it might end up replacing one or two coders here or there, might be further incorporated into Google, but I don't think it's going to be the magical tool that people want it to be, the sort of source of all information. And in fact, it's like you said, information you're going to have to look up anyway. Like, I think that's what people don't really want to do. Like, they don't really want to follow those sources because we don't like teach them to do that outside of school. And so it just becomes like, I would love search engine that I could type any question and it gives me like an essay back as opposed to me having to go through all the results. It's just making it easier and easier to misinform yourselves in certain ways.
Yeah, and I'd say like I think it is like going to be fairly significant, but I also don't think it's going to make society unrecognizable. Like from when I was like 10 to now, we have access to like basically every book or so millions of books right in our pocket, right? And that's pretty revolutionary. And the thing with the Chat GPT that people are freaking out about is like college papers, right? And like from my perspective, I feel like if it starts doing like essays that are like sort of like intro, body, conclusion, first of all, that stuff is kind of mechanical. So then it becomes sort of like a relationship a student has with a graphing calculator versus like an abacus. Like if you can do this basic I actually don't care if you let an AI sort of help you write a paper, as long as you acknowledge that, and two, are able to edit it into something that actually like a human being can get something useful out of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I literally just had this conversation. I'm not that concerned about like kids have cheated since the dawn of time, and maybe this will be an easier tool for cheating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's systems in place now where if you're taking a test remotely, you have a program open on your computer and you can only use that program and it shuts everything else down. They're just going to do that and try to incorporate things that detect artificial intelligence, I think. But
I also don't care if, kids cheat in school. That's such a weird reason not to develop a tech, because ultimately, at the end, I think that what you're saying is true. Like if Chat GPT, is used properly, it should be used to like help you edit, to help you craft ideas, to be a more like organic way to read for people who have a hard time with sort of more rote types of like information. But ultimately, like technology should make your work more efficient.
Yeah.
If the entire process is just like rote and mechanical and can be entirely done by AI, then like what is the ultimate purpose of this essay? If that's the only source of learning people are going to get in this class, then that maybe you need to redo your own, and I know it's difficult, and sometimes you're not allowed to, but like that just speaks to like the like low quality of the education. Like if having like an AI, if having an AI do the essay and you can't recognize that it's not written by the person in class that you've been talking to, if you've been talking to them, I would imagine this would only be useful for like really, really big intro level courses that people take for gen eds. And past that point, you would notice that this doesn't sound like Keith. Yeah. This isn't Keith's voice. And so, so a few kids get an A in like intro to sociology.
Yeah, I hear that.